He is shocking everyone. After their bounce back win against the Baltimore Ravens last Sunday, one particular Chiefs defender made a really big impact in this game, contrary to the lackluster performances he had put up early in the season. You probably know who I'm talking about if you're looking on the screen, but hi there, my name is Jake McVey. Come on in. This is Chiefs Digest, but before we begin, I just want to remind everyone that over 65% of the people who view these videos are not subscribed. If you're enjoying the content and you want to join a community full of like-minded Chiefs fans who love the celebration and the discourse around this team, make sure you subscribe. And if you like the video, drop a like too. Now let's get right into it because George Karlaftis is back, baby. George Karlaftis is back in his classic Furious George form that we've seen out of him, that we know we can see out of him. And I really couldn't be more excited about it. You take a look at the early performances that George Karlaftis put up this season, and it was not so great. Throughout the first 2 weeks, he only had 3 tackles in either game, 1 QB hit against the Chargers. He had a decent game against the Chargers. 2 tackles for loss is definitely a big deal, but only 3 tackles total. That's definitely less than ideal for your edge rusher. He also only recorded 1 pressure throughout the entirety of the LA Chargers game. It looked like in that situation, the Chargers offensive line was just a little too beefy to handle. They had Joe Alt anchoring down on one side. Of course, Rashawn Slater is missing, but that Chargers offensive line is no joke. And I think it definitely showed in Karlaftis' production. You take a look at that game against Philadelphia in week 2. Karlaftis kind of put up another stinker, 0 QB hits, only 3 tackles, and only 1 tackle by himself, not to mention 0 pressures. It was a really poor performance out of a guy who, characteristically plays very well as a complement to pieces like Chris Jones and Charles Omenihu. So I was definitely surprised to see that out of Karlaftis, but I think that situation really just came down to A, the Chiefs defense did not do a great job of clicking in general. B, Jalen Hurts had an incredibly fast time to throw throughout that game. He was letting that thing fly, very short passes. As we know, Jalen Hurts is incapable of throwing the ball more than 5 yards downfield, but it won him a Super Bowl, so whatever. I won't say nothing more on that. But yeah, it's just the fact that Hurts, one of the talents that Hurts has as a quarterback is that he limits the opportunities that teams can have to give negative plays on him by not throwing the ball. And when he does throw the ball, throwing the ball very quickly. Same kind of situation with the Chargers, except I would say that Justin Herbert threatens more from a rushing standpoint. He's a large quarterback. Not to say Hurts doesn't threaten from a rushing standpoint, of course. It's just that in the game against Kansas City, Justin Herbert, when he felt pressure, instead of throwing away the ball, he would take off. And you look at those two guys compared to each other, Justin Herbert and George Karlaftis. Herbert's built like a stallion. He's going to be outrunning Karlaftis every single time. So that is kind of where I categorize these two, like I said, uncharacteristically poor performances out of George Karlaftis. Usually he is a very reliable, very dangerous piece to this defense, but the Chargers and the Eagles both did a really good job of shutting him down in both of their games across the first 2 weeks. And I'm sure you remember I even made a video criticizing George Karlaftis and Chris Jones and Charles Omenihu for their poor performance. But I am thankful to say, you take a look at this, George Karlaftis is certainly back. You take a look at that week 3 performance against the New York Giants, 10 total tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and 5 QB hits. QB hits and pressures, he had 4 pressures, by the way. QB hits and pressures are 2 of the most important stats to be looking at when we're looking at the productivity of an edge rusher, because pressures mean I was close enough to the quarterback where he felt the need to either bail out or throw the ball. You see this a lot of the time. Edge rushers will do their job by getting close enough to scare the quarterback into making a reactionary move. Again, whether it be running the ball, whether it be throwing, whether it be falling down in fear. There's a lot of different ways that a quarterback can react to an edge rusher. But pressures is how we quantify that. QB hits is kind of a more extreme version of pressures, where instead of just I got close enough, it's I got hands on you. And usually this happens right as the quarterback is throwing the ball. I'm sure you've seen those plays. They're the plays where people, roughing the passer penalties get called and people get very upset about it. But QB hits put a lot of pressure on a quarterback. And I'll tell you, it does not, just because they didn't lose any yards doesn't mean that that quarterback is not feeling the hit that he just took. So obviously, I think it makes sense that we're seeing an uptick in Karlaftis' production. I think across the entire season, the Chiefs got their two best offensive line matchups out of the way very early, being the Chargers and the Eagles. I really don't think they're going to play a better offensive line than either of those two teams. So I'm expecting Karlaftis' production to stay pretty high. And he had a great performance against Baltimore, just being all over the field. He recorded a sack against Lamar Jackson. Again, something that is incredibly difficult to do. And he finished the day with a little bit more of a moderate stat line. It wasn't the monster stat line that we saw him put up against the Giants. Again, Karlaftis was the number 1 ranked edge rusher in the entire NFL in week 3 against the Giants. So we can't necessarily expect production like that out of him every week. Only every other week, obviously. No, I'm only kidding. But Karlaftis put up a pretty good game against a much more well put together Ravens offense. Although some might argue that now they are not looking as well put together. But Karlaftis finishes the day with 1 sack, 2 total tackles, a tackle for loss, 4 QB hits, and 4 pressures. And like I said, even though it's not the monstrous statistical game that we saw out of Karlaftis, I would say that he was even more impactful in this Ravens game than he was in that Giants game. I mean, he was all over the field, just constantly terrorizing Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson is a quarterback that is very difficult to record pressures and sacks and hits against. So again, the fact that Karlaftis managed to put up these kinds of numbers, the fact that Karlaftis managed to put up the same kind of numbers against Russell Wilson as he did Lamar Jackson, I think is a testament to the impact that he brought for this Chiefs defense during the Ravens game. He just looked really great. He was winning matchups. Ronnie Stanley, unfortunately, did not play out the entire game. He went out pretty early into the game, if I'm not mistaken. But Karlaftis was just completely eating up whoever they put against him. He looked fast, and he had Lamar kind of on his heels for a lot of the game. And that was sort of the mental aspect that led to the Chiefs kind of winning that game, was that Lamar felt helpless, and part of that helplessness was that he had 2 of the scariest defenders in the entire NFL in Chris Jones and George Karlaftis bearing down on him at all times. And I think that Steve Spagnuolo did a phenomenal job of correcting Karlaftis. One of the big criticisms that I had for Karlaftis throughout the first 2 weeks was that he was taking too deep of an angle when he was rushing on passing attempts. And I think Spagnuolo must have listened to my video, because ever since that Giants game, Karlaftis has been doing a great job of taking a much steeper angle while also not giving up the edge. You know, the reason that we were able to keep Lamar Jackson so well contained is, yes, it was partially, well, a lot of it was Leo Chenal doing a great job as a spy linebacker, but a lot of it was also George Karlaftis, who set that edge and made it so that it wasn't a great situation for Lamar to try and cut in between the tackle and the guard or try to bounce around to the outside. He did a really good job setting that angle. And you can tell Lamar was not in his element. He did not look comfortable. He did not feel comfortable. And like I said, a big part of that was definitely Leo Chenal, but I think a bigger part of that was also George Karlaftis restricting the space. Lamar is the type of quarterback where you don't want to collapse the pocket all at once, because now all of your guys are standing right on top of each other, and Lamar Jackson is already 5 yards down the field. He's just the type of quarterback with that speed. What the goal was for the edge rushers in this game was to slowly constrict and force Lamar to make a move that the defense can then respond to. So I think that's what Karlaftis did, and I think he did a phenomenal job of it, just kind of holding that defense, or holding his offensive linemen in place and making it very difficult for Lamar to commit to either throwing or running the ball. When you bring up that uncertainty, when you create a situation where Lamar is not sure what he wants to do, that is how you win that interaction. And that's how you end up beating Lamar. That's why Kansas City is so great at beating Lamar. I mean, Spagnuolo has Lamar's number, and he knows how to counter him as a quarterback. And that's just a little bit of insight into the strategy that goes into beating an incredibly dynamic and athletic quarterback like Lamar Jackson. So yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you guys today. Just a little George Karlaftis love. I love George Karlaftis. He's one of my favorite guys on the roster right now. So yeah, if you love George Karlaftis too, make sure you subscribe. We're going to be talking a lot more about him, as the weeks come and as he continues to put up these great performances against good teams. And yeah, before I go, just remember, win, lose, or tie, red and gold until I die. My name is Jake McVey. This has been Chiefs Digest. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys another time.